Ah. Hello and welcome to the Hedonistic Way at Midday Show. I am Renee Main and I have one of Australia's leading soul strategists and psychic mediums. She is a fierce devotee in supporting women's rights and social justice. She is completely unafraid to tackle the global issues. She is a fierce warrior with a soft, gooey center, and she tells it how it is. She has a huge, ginormous background in mental health and maximum security prisms. She is, did I just say prisms?
Yeah, I like that. I want to be maximum security prisms. That's much better. Because I'm sure that's much nicer than where I've been.
That kind of sounds much nicer. Maximum security prisms.
I want to be in a big prism.
Yeah. Sounds very Superman-y, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's funny.
But she's absolutely obsessed with living your best life. And last week we started a really big conversation on Clubhouse, and we wanted to just share it with everyone because we spoke about how to return to love in a shame-filled, misogynistic, white patriarchal world. So I'm super excited to delve into this conversation again. Welcome to the show, Rebecca Gibson.
Hello.
Hello. Oh,
Wet Rebecca Gibson.
yes.
Well, it's raining. I just picked up a crystal. I'm like, that's wet too. Everything in my house is wet. It's not flooded, but everything's wet. My heart goes out to anyone who's watching this. It's losing all their stuff. So
Yeah, it's crazy to see and to witness. And my house has flooded in the past, so I know exactly how it feels to, walk back through that house for the first time. And, it is devastating. So, yeah, our hearts are with everyone that's been through all the floods that are happening here in Australia. Just before we went live, you were telling me about Scott Morrison.
Oh yeah, I
And
haven't
his
watched it.
announcement.
So I've watched snippets of it. So this just goes on from that conversation that we had last week. So we were talking last week about the white patriarchal system, misogyny not just being something that men feel, but very much something that women feel also. And that's something that's being kind of programmed into us because of the system that's been set up by the white patriarch. And so I'm not sure of the details because last week we were talking about it after a whole bunch of stuff around Parliament House had come out. And so something else, I think there has been a bunch of staff members that have been sharing really inappropriate photos within their workplace. I'm all for people go to town and do whatever you want in your private life, but in your workplace, I don't think it's appropriate for you to be taking nude selfies and sharing them around. And so that got him fired up, where he's done this national address. And I was just saying to Renee, he's talked about the bits that I saw talking about his wife and his daughters. And I'd say he's had some very uncomfortable but necessary conversations at home. And I'm not on the man-hating wagon around feminism or anything, because I myself, what we discussed last week, I myself have been super misogynistic in periods of my life because of the way that I've been programmed in the work environments that I've been in. But we do need to get really uncomfortable having a look at ourselves and having a look at the system, and to stop getting defensive and taking things so personally around misogyny, racism, the white patriarchal system. We have to be vulnerable and have these conversations and put ourselves out there amongst cancel culture and whatever, in order for us to start learning and shifting and changing things. And we can't do that if we're not willing to get down in the dirt and be vulnerable. Such conversations like this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, they are such, or they can be really uncomfortable conversations. And something that we were discussing last week is, when we refer to the white patriarch, it's not, we refer to it as the machine and the
Yes,
structure,
exactly.
not
White
white
men.
men.
Yeah.
Um, so,
Because it is a
yeah,
system, it is a
yeah,
machine. It has
yeah.
been something that's been orchestrated from white men,
Mm,
and there are minorities.
yeah.
Like, if you're outside of that system, you're a minority. And
Mm,
so I, for myself, being a white passing woman living here on traditional First Nations land, so blessed,
mm,
have worked in systems that have been set up by the white patriarch: psychiatry, prison systems. And in order for me to feel safe in those environments, I did start to adopt very misogynistic views about things. And this is why it's really important for women to really dig deep into where are they being part of that system, also with their actions, their words, their belief systems, and to not feel shame or guilt around it, but to dig into it. Like, yeah, I have been really misogynistic. Yeah, I do have a lot of work to do around that. Yeah, I have had ill feelings towards other women based on the way that, the environments in which I was working in. And so I've really had to dig deep into my shadow stuff and really have a look at um, the programming and the beliefs, and understand that it is part of the machine that we're in, that we've been programmed by, propaganded to by, and we're not going to have healing as a species if we're not going to put ourselves out there and say, yeah, I've been an asshole and I'm trying to work on it.
yeah, yeah. Why do you think it's so hard? Because it is like, in a lot of these conversations that I've had, whether it be around anti racism, Black Lives Matter, whether it's women's rights, equality, like the white patriarch, all of these different flavors of, ableism, the minority, is a lot of it is automatic defensive, and to go, well, no, that's not me. And people actually get
Shame.
very agitated. So is it
Because
shame?
shame
Yeah,
feels like crap.
yeah.
Shame feels like you just have to see people who are diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder. And I'm very deliberately saying diagnosed narcissistic personality disorder, not this social media warrior like that's a narcissist. I've been with a narcissist because you difficulty communicating with each other. Not like narcissism isn't as rampant as what people think that it is.
Yeah.
But to sit with someone who does have that personality disorder, they have mass amounts of shame. When you trigger that in them, it's very noticeable because it instantly turns to rage.
Mm,
But we're all carrying shame, and it's one of the crappiest emotions to feel ever. And so because it's you start to feel it instantly, you don't like it,
mm,
instantly get defensive. You're not talking about me, this is about me, it's not all men, all lives matter, like all of this stuff where it comes from this place of shame and guilt, and I just don't like this hot potato, so I'm going to throw it back
yeah.
at you. It's creates more anger because the people aren't having the conversations. When someone reacts that way, it's cutting the conversation right there. It's not allowing the space, it's not allowing the healing of their expansion, and it's just putting it back onto the other person, which then creates more issues. So I think as a whole, we need to sit with shame, and we need to, like, this feels crappy, but it's something that joins us all together. I don't think that there would be many humans alive that have not experienced shame in some form. And until we start gonna to empathize with each other at baseline emotions, and because we've all got different perceptions, we've all experienced life very differently. We all experience life based on what privileges we do or don't have, but we all experience the same emotions. Like, we're all having emotional experiences, and that's where we need to empathize with each other. That's the common ground that we can find with one another to help this system either be dismantled or completely create other systems that are inclusive and that there is no minority and we all get to flourish together. That includes finances, everything. Everything needs to be restructured. We can't keep going the way that we're going.
No, and I think, we're seeing the destruction of it, as we speak, and it really is beginning to crumble. I do want to enter into that, but I did just want to pick up on something that you just said, that is that, I really loved what you said there about, by us just stopping that conversation and going, but all lives matter, or but all people matter. And, all it is, we're ignoring, and we're not honoring, the minority, and we're really we're cutting off someone's very real experience, and keeping that conversation going is really important, because we're coming at it from our experience, but as you said, based on our privilege and our life experience, then and someone else is coming at it from a completely different perspective and experience. So it's just that humility, and like, really, like, who are we to actually question or doubt someone else's real experience with this? So I think that is important, and everyone has the right to be heard.
Exactly.
I think that is a human desire that a lot of people really shut down. And so that, I think that's even just such a small thing, but even just for us to be mindful of, like, am I shutting down this conversation when this other person actually needs airtime? How can we give more airtime to minorities, to this conversation, to be willing to sit in our own discomfort and be willing to get it wrong? I think that's a big part of it, is we're going to say the wrong thing. I think back to, like, my friends of color, and I go, man, I said some stupid ass
me too.
things.
The microaggressions, honestly. And that brings up guilt and shame, and I'm really trying to, like, work through that. Holy shit, I've been such an asshole. I've been spewing out microaggressions all over the place from my place of, what do you mean we're racist? I've never been racist. Like, I'm biracial, but white passing. Like, I would say, oh, I'm biracial. I don't look biracial. I am, and I've had my own cultural experiences with my family, but I don't know what they experienced. I don't. But I was being defensive. It's not me. And I had to, like, sit, and I'm still trying to sit with it. I'm trying to be an ally. I'm trying to be anti-racist. I'm nowhere near it yet. But I'm no longer defensive saying that that's not me, because I'm not taking it so personally anymore. I'm understanding that I too am a product of this system. And if I'm not willing to acknowledge those aspects of myself that are a product of that system, then I can't help create new systems. I can't help to dismantle something that's not functional for any of us. Plants, animals, the earth, humanity, nothing. If we keep going the way we're going, we're going to destroy
everyone,
life. And it's the same with misogyny. People are like, oh, I'm a woman, I'm not misogynistic. Well, we are.
Very much so.
We are. We just have to look at magazines, social media, reality TV, the crap that we're constantly competing against each other, feeding each other, gossiping about one another, talking about what each other's wearing, and we blame that on men. It's not the men that are creating those conversations, it's us.
That's right.
We women are doing this to ourselves because we do have internal biases, and we do have internal misogyny, because that's what we've been programmed to believe. And until we're willing to look at that within ourselves, we can't open up these conversations and open up our eyes and, like, wow, I am part of the system. I'm part of the problem. I want to take the red pill and get off this ride, but I'm not able to do that if I'm not going to be willing to have a look at the crappy, shitty, shameful, disgraceful things that I've thought and said.
Yeah, absolutely. And even like it can, like I find myself saying things, still I'm picking, it's a constant evolution, and even it could be something really small that, that we do within that no one hears, that no one sees, but yet every time, like I might say to my partner, like, I feel like, oh, I have to go cook dinner or I have to do this, because I'm a woman. It's like, or he thinks that so he gets one particular job and I get the other, whatever it is, it's that is just so ingrained in our society. We don't even question it because we are a part of this machine. So it's stuff that really, does it matter? Probably not. But just that point of where I'm giving away my power, where that expectation is, oh, okay, it's because I'm a woman, I need to actually go do this, that's where I'm currently looking at just all the little
We all
ways.
need to get better with boundaries and assertiveness, and it all comes back to self-love.
Yeah.
Really. Everything comes back to self-love. I don't love myself enough to be assertive. I don't love myself enough to know what my boundaries are and that I'm able to assert them with love rather than being passive aggressive or manipulative by being avoidant. I'm not going to go off and start slamming the kitchen cupboards because I'm stuck doing these things again, like working 2 jobs and doing this. And like, we all need to take responsibility for ourselves, do the work, the shadow work, have a look, listen to each other. That's the best thing about Clubhouse. Honestly, I'm really loving it because it's forcing me to be a better listener. I can't respond. I'm not sitting there thinking, what am I going to say, because you're being respectful. And then all of a sudden, oh, I forgot what I was going to say. It mustn't have been important. Just stop speaking, Rebecca, and just listen. And I love Clubhouse because the algorithm is not marketing to me. My feed is not being whitewashed. I am getting to listen to really powerful people from all over the world, all different communities, all different cultures, all different backgrounds, belief systems, education, abilities, just like tiny little things you don't think about. Like I was like, oh, I'm not going to say my name because I didn't want to seem like, oh, I'm Rebecca, like my own internal crap. And then someone pointed out, you should, because there are people on here who are blind and are using this space and they can't see the little ring around your photo that you're talking. Like, I didn't even think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's why we need to listen.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's, I wrote a poem yesterday and saying, we're talking, I can't even remember who it was, talking about the etiquette of Clubhouse that, we're bringing into Zoom, we're bringing into our lives where we mute ourselves while the other person is talking, which is all behaviors for those who aren't on Clubhouse. That's a behavior, that's an etiquette that we do on Clubhouse because it is about listening first and and sharing the voice and amplifying all voices. And it's a beautiful platform for that, and it is really diversifying that ableism.
So it's so inclusive, and it's about listening, like really wholeheartedly listening, rather than I'm needing to respond to this, and like formulating what your response is going to be. Like, you have to listen. It's not your turn to speak next. You might not even be up into the top part of the section where you can open your microphone. And so sometimes I'll just listen for hours to people talking, and I'm learning so much, especially around spirituality and different cultures and different countries where people are scared to have spiritual conversations because of what may happen to them. Their safety's compromised because of where they live and cultural beliefs. And like, wow, for you to be able to have this safe space away from your government listening in, or it's so important. So I'm hoping that it stays as innocent as what I feel it's meant to be, rather than, I mean, the Facebook's turned into white patriarchal system.
Yeah.
It's part of the machine.
Yeah.
And here we are live.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to infiltrate the machine from within.
And that's it, because it's, and you know, that's something that we spoke about last week, is that's, you know, we're having these beautiful, deep, juicy conversations that are really friggin' hard to have and can be really confronting. But we were talking last week about how do we take this mainstream, because they're hard friggin' conversations to have. So, and the majority of people do go, it's too hard, so I'm just gonna like not even go there. So how do we get people to care, you know?
I think we just need to have these conversations where it's not about blame and shame. It's about, you know what, you have shame and so do I. And so let's talk on that. I've been an asshole and I feel really shameful about it. And I'm going to likely continue to have microaggressions and lack of insight and lack of sensitivity, but I'm working on it because I'm still going to talk about it, and I'm going to put myself out there in cancel culture. Like, I know now I get backlash about things. I get trolled now on Instagram just because I've got psychic medium next to my name, and the vicious things that people say, and I'm just like, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I just, you know what, that's where you're at. You're not who I need to learn from.
Yeah.
I need to learn from the ones that are triggering that assholeness behavior in me.
Yeah.
If that kind of offensive, defensive behavior is being triggered in me, I now know, shut up and listen, Rebecca. You're being triggered because this is something within you that needs to be healed, and you need to say sorry, and you need to do better.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you know, like, now I get that, because there's so much, you know, misconception around, you know, what a psychic medium is and isn't. And, you know, I feel the same very much about when I was stepping more into and saying, you know, like, I'm an intuitive dominatrix. I work with somatic kink, you know, and so, and when you enter this into this realm, like, people can just be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, what is this? And what does it mean? And you're not doing what I thought you did. And there can be a spin-off of all of these different things, because what are the two things that people are going to be, you know, to be triggered by most is sex, talking about sex, and psychic ability, right?
But most of us are having sex and we're all psychic, we're just not using it. And it's just, it triggers so much fear in people.
Yeah.
People sometimes find it easier to doubt and pretend something doesn't exist than to sit with the fear and the shame and the guilt and all the crappy, yucky feelings that we get. People are so desperate to run away from their feelings in however form that takes, be it addiction, mindless numbing television, complete avoidance, shopping too much, spending too much time on social media, talking about other people, anything to avoid sitting with feelings that are gross and we don't like them. But we have to sit with them, because that's how we connect. We connect through the good stuff, but we also connect through the stuff that feels crappy.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've all got shadow.
All of us. And it's never done.
No, never.
You know, that's the thing. I think we've still got this idea that we're going to get to this point in time where we get to this destination, where we get to this point where we're like these
I can retire. I can retire now.
I can retire from my spirit. Yes. My work
I'm
is
retiring.
done. Yeah.
I've transcended my ego. I say, if anyone says that they've transcended their ego, run a mile, because it's their ego that said that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We were was it
I'm a guru. I do yoga and I'm a vegetarian.
Yeah.
I don't need to do any more work. I stopped
Exactly.
eating meat.
Yeah.
I'm healed.
That's right. All is well in my world. I am an enlightened being. And that's, someone on Clubhouse a few weeks ago was saying about how, grabbed the mic and saying how he's abolished the ego and he's enlightened and he's of service in this community and he's a physician and he's, doing all of these spectacular things and could recite every single Sanskrit, that is out there. But yet spoke for about half an hour. And every time, like we tried to, because it wasn't even his room. So every time I'd go in as the event, I was the moderator. So I'm like, thank you so much. And he would go, still keep going. So it's like, okay, like, and that's the shadow, the spiritual ego, right? Because nothing's ever done.
Yeah. No, it never. It's never. And then, no, even when we leave these skin suits, we've still got work to do. It's never done. It's constantly evolving, expanding. It's energy. It's just, we're transmuting, transforming all of the time. And as long as you're human, you're going to have shadow. That's just how it's going to be. And you can work on your own shadow, but you're still part of the collective.
That's right.
Which, 2020 was a big highlight of the shadow collective. For us to really think, wow, like when we start hoarding toilet paper globally, that's when you know that scarcity is a pretty big thing amongst all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. But what it solidified for me was the importance of us taking these conversations and sharing them, right? Because they're conversations that you and I would have all the time in our probably safe little pockets of friendships and communities and everything else, but yet taking them mainstream because there is so much scarcity, there is so much lack, there is so much fear. So for me, it was just like, we need to get these conversations out into the mainstream.
We need to too, so we can be confronted. Because if we're having these conversations in our safe little circle, we're not learning anything. We're just rehashing stuff unless we're willing to put ourselves out there and be put on the firing line so people can trigger us to say, you don't know everything. What you've said's actually really offensive. Like, how are we going to know in our safe little white bubbles? We're not. Like, I feel very privileged to live where I live. And I thought, I'm on social media, I'm on Instagram, not a lot, but I'm on Facebook. I didn't realize how whitewashed the crap, the friend requests. I'm like, where's all the diversity here? Like, I'm not learning anything. And then Clubhouse came and I'm like, wow, I know nothing. I know nothing. I just need to shut up and listen. I just tell everyone, if you've got an iPhone, get onto Clubhouse, because you will learn so much about what's really happening out there in the world amongst other people and what people's experiences have been growing up based on, whatever their privilege or lack of privilege is. And unless you're willing to get in the fire, you're not going to learn. Sometimes we need to be burned in order for us to learn.
Absolutely.
I'm one of these people. Sometimes I need to get slapped in the face by the universe. I need to get burned. I need to suffer some pain in order for me to stop and take notice. Why did that happen? What have I done to bring that into my learning?
I think we all do. I think we all do. It's a part of, I was listening to an audio book at the moment, and I was listening to it this morning, and they were talking about how it's when the transcendence of the growth that's happened through the trauma outweighs the pain of the trauma.
Yeah.
You know, so then and we all know that we've like been on our knees, we've like gone, we're in the mud, and we've all had an experience where we got, oh, okay, like there's massive growth on the other side. You know, I think we've all experienced that. And I really love what what you're speaking to there, because I think it's really important that we begin to, and again, like sharing stories. Like this is, the more that we share stories, there's always this moment where I remember when mum had passed away, and it was 6 months in, and I was going through, like, my brother and I were going through a really shitty time with mum's will and stuff, and it took forever. And anyway, that's just a whole nother story. But then I had another sister who was, grieving, and she was angry. And there was this one point where I spoke to her, and she was angry at me. She had a lot of anger and frustration and probably hatred towards me in that moment. And I just told her one day exactly how I was feeling. And, I was just like, it's this, not at her, just about, everything. And she said to me, I saw you in that moment. And once I saw you, I couldn't not have compassion for you.
Yeah.
And so it's, you can agree, you can disagree, it doesn't even matter. But as soon as you see someone, you can't not feel for them.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's what Clubhouse is opening up. That is what, that we're hoping, to
That's
bring
where we
life.
need to be mindful about when we do witness somebody else's pain. Are we going to then be triggered and give them more pain, or make it all about our pain? When are you going to stop and say, this isn't about me? I can empathize with them, but this isn't about me. So I'm just going to hold space for you right now and witness you.
Yeah.
And then I'll go back, anything that was triggered. So say the sibling thing, because that same thing happened when my father died, because I was instrumental in nursing him right to the end. And my brother's way of dealing with it was, they didn't want to deal with it. They kind of like backed off and left everything to me. So I was the angry one. I was very, very angry, and I was in a lot of pain, and I was projecting that all at them, but I wasn't willing to sit and look at their way of dealing with their pain was to be avoidant. My way of dealing with the pain was to take over everything and do it all. And so later I fell apart, really resentful, but I had put myself in that position. They didn't put me in that position, but I just wanted everyone around me to hurt because I was hurting. And so when we're seeing others hurt us or feeling other hurt us, that's when we need to be witness to, you're hurting.
Yeah.
You're hurting. Mind you, I say that, but if someone's literally hurting you, please.
Yes, exactly.
If you're watching this and you're in any kind of abusive relationship, that I don't say that like they're hurting, so just witness it.
Yes.
But, get help.
Yeah.
But if it's something like what we're talking about, I'm going to sit in the discomfort of witnessing someone's pain and not make it about me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a beautiful moment. And, something that you were talking about earlier that really resonated, because I feel like that was a huge edge for me and a huge shadow for me when I was really beginning to understand privilege and the machine and my dance with it, is because I really rejected privilege, or the whole idea of privilege, or thought I was exempt from privilege, because I was like, man, like I was brought up with no money and, single parent, and like my mum was a single parent, and, and we got abused. We got physically abused. So I was like, for me, I'm not privileged. Like there is no way I'm privileged. So for me to actually understand, I'm actually of privilege. Like for me, that I was actually mind blown.
Yeah.
Now I think, oh my God, Renee, really? Could you
Yeah.
really think like that? But at the time, it was a real shock. So,
Yeah.
you know.
That's why we need people to burn us in a certain way. We need that as a species.
Mm.
This is what, you know, we're seeing with men now, and then they're not all men, and like we know it's not all men. We know that. But the point is, the majority of people who murder women and children are men. Like statistically, that's just how it is. And you know, the all lives matter thing, like, yes, everyone understands that, but until we start elevating the lives of Black and Asian communities, then all lives don't matter, because the system is set up where they don't matter. It's the same as like disabilities. Like we as women, this is like I really try to get through to other white women. You know how upset you get about the not all men thing? This is why they get upset about the all lives matter thing, because it's coming from a completely different place of privilege. Like you can, like men, not all men just walk away from it. You get to walk home at 8 o'clock at night and not be murdered or raped. You get to wear whatever you want and feel safe to be able to do that. Like you get all that. And we as white women need to understand that we have privileges and safety that our sisters, you know, Asian and Black sisters and different religions and different experiences don't get that we do. And it's confronting in the beginning, and it's still confronting now. Sometimes I'll see certain people's posts when they're talking about anti-racism stuff, and it triggers shame in me. And I just want to scroll past, but I'm not going to scroll past because that's
privilege.
Part of the problem.
That's privilege.
I'm going to sit and I'm going to read this.
Yeah.
And even though this particular person is like, I find them so confronting about this, I'm going to be confronted.
Yeah.
I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to, and that's just what we have to do. So I get into Clubhouse rooms where there are hardly any white people in there, and I do it very deliberately so I can sit and listen with so much gratitude for the way that they share and the vulnerability and how open they are and their passion and their fierce compassion and their drive to how are we going to change this, because I want to be part of the change, but I've got so much listening to do.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So much listening. I want to ask you, you talk about change. How do we begin to make this change? Like, how do we begin?
You have to start with yourself first.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not going to be willing to change yourself and your viewpoints and, you know, be part of the spectrum, like if you're not willing to stretch yourself out and be part of the spectrum, then you're not going to help change. But you have to listen. You can't expand without the listening. If you don't know, you don't grow.
Yeah.
So learn. Learn. Don't demand that people teach you. That's what's so good about Clubhouse. I'm not demanding anybody teach me. I'm just witnessing and listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's no, you know, and that's what I like, and that's what I love about it, is because it's that sovereignty and it's that secure attachment where you can go, yeah, cool, like this is who I am and I'm taking responsibility. I'm self-governing. I'm not codependent on someone feeding me this information. So I think that's really important, you know, when we do this, is to, you know, I think there's a lot in that, you know, to be able to listen and not expect that, you know, someone has to then go, okay, it's this, right? It's, you need to be able to go, yeah, like take it upon yourself to learn, read, research, you know, do your homework, is a big one.
Definitely just listening. I
Yeah.
didn't realize what a crappy listener I was until I got onto Clubhouse. And at first, just like, I just want to send an emoji. I just want to react. I just need to inject myself into the conversation. I just need to be heard. I need to be seen. I need to be part of this, which is so weird because I'm so introverted and I'm so isolative. And, so I really struggle with social media, especially as an empath. I'm just like, I can't take on board this anymore, but then that's my privilege to shut it off. So I set boundaries with myself and I make sure that I'm listening in those rooms and I'm witnessing people and not feeling the need to give my 2 cents, because my 2 cents doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm being triggered and I'm willing to sit with the trigger and then go and read, listen some more, do something where I'm going to learn why that trigger is there and how to heal it, and then how to help others with the same triggers. Just like, this is where you need to be listening. This is what you need to be reading. This is who you should be having these conversations with. Just even this conversation should include, our Black sisters, Asian sisters, minority sisters from other religions, other abilities, like all walks of life. So we can talk about how the white patriarch affects them, how misogynism affects them, like this. Because we complain that we can't walk down the street without feeling safe, but imagine living in some of those countries where if you're raped, you're murdered, you're killed for it because it's your fault. Like, there's privilege within our own issues with men. But we have to have these conversations, and we need to be standing forward and willing to put our metaphorical head on the chopping block and be ripped apart for the things that we've said in the conversations, in order for us to learn and for people who think like us to learn as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I've been pondering a lot, probably, and a lot of it is since our conversation, talking about, what do we do? How do we do this going forward? And I've been thinking about the hierarchical model and business model and structure. What does that even look like? How do you see us moving forward? Because I really feel like we're just in this fluid time where it's unraveling, but we're at the edge where we actually don't know what this looks like. So I was curious to get your thoughts on that.
For what I see in terms of like my own spiritual foresight, it won't just be one system. It'll be mandalas of systems, people creating their own systems all over the place and cross-pollinating with each other, like little beehives everywhere with bees in them. But like the feminine starting to rise, where women are really starting to take over, especially the online business world, growing generational wealth starting with them. I don't come from generational wealth, and my money stuff's crap, but I now know I've come out of working full-time in clinical spaces to grow this business because I want to be a more present parent, and I also want to build wealth for my daughter to have more choices. Had I still been working full-time in the hospital system, I could be working 20 hours a day every single day. There's still a cap to how much I would be earning. And so I had to start looking at my money stuff. And then I look at all my friends who are super successful, and they're giving so much and they're using their wealth to bring up other people, to give them a head start, give them a head up. Women nurture with their money. I don't imagine that there'll be many female billionaires running around and keeping all of this to themselves to pass on to generations. They'll be using it, because when the world and the collective is happier, we're going to be happier as a species. I don't want to be part of the cog anymore that has created such devastation and separation. And like just incarceration itself. Like even working in the jails, I'm like, well, so this isn't me. I like very much in separation. There was no sovereignty. I had no idea about oneness or real connection that we're one with everything. I would think that I was non-judgmental, because here I am having these conversations with people who've done the most horrendous things, but I'm still thinking that I'm better than them. I know I've reached this point, like, there but for the grace of God go I. Like, had I had their life, maybe I too would be sitting in their position having done something horrible. But then I look at that system now and the free labor that they get out of like minorities who are highly incarcerated as opposed to white people, and then them, like here in New South Wales, they're building schools that they're like, it's an infrastructure within itself. I know Queensland, I was up in Queensland for a while, a lot of their systems privatized, so their sentences were way longer than what they would be down here in New South Wales. And I'm like, why? And I was like, free labor. And then you look, America, it's so broken, their system, and they have such large numbers of Black community incarcerated for things like pot. Like, there's no way a white guy would be going to jail for like 20 years over having a joint on them, and yet they're incarcerating Black people over there and then making them work. I mean, I watched a documentary, had to see what happened with the system after Hurricane Katrina over there, and the amount of Black people that were killed on death row in such a short space of time, because all of a sudden all the juries were white, and they're just one after the other. I was like, that's just so bizarre to me, that you're basically murdering people from a place of racism. It's broken. And white people need to take we do need to take accountability for this. I used to have that stupid thought, well, I didn't do it. Why am I having to say sorry? Why am I having, like, it's such privileged bullshit. We do need to take accountability for this, because we are broken, and it needs fixing, changing, shifting, restructuring, rebuilding. You know, everyone deserves to be safe.
And that's right. Absolutely. Everyone deserves to be safe. Everyone deserves to be seen, to be heard, and, you know, and
choices. Everyone deserves choices.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, thinking
freedom.
that, exactly. And that's, you know, Martin Luther King, you know, is "We're not free until we're all free," and is one of my favorite quotes, because it brings me back every single time, you know, and that's what being of service, you know, is really, you know, for me about. So
so much.
So
much. And here we are. Look, this is two whiteys talking about stuff that we don't really know about, which is just from little bits that we're listening. This is not our lived experience.
No, exactly.
And if people are getting uncomfortable with what we're saying when it's not their lived experience either, then they need to sit and start listening to other people, that it is their lived experience. And I think we need to speak to our white sisters on this, who your lived experience, you know, as a woman, that you feel unsafe all the time. Imagine adding to that color, lack of education, lack of money, lack of choice. Like, just imagine having to add all that stuff. Imagine not being able to feed your family, and you have to turn to sex work or something to and then there's all of that risk that comes with that. But you do anything to feed your family, look after your kids. Like, there's nothing wrong with being privileged, but it is wrong if you're going to deny it and pretend like other people's lived experience doesn't exist because it's not like yours.
And that's, you just hit such a, I think, a poignant thing, is because, again, that was another edge for me, is feeling guilty for my privilege. So then going, okay, like, how do I be okay with this privilege? How do I not get, like, circling back to shame, like, how do I not feel shameful? How do I get rid of this shame for my privilege? You know, and that's my heritage, like, it comes from explorers. So my direct heritage is some of the white explorers that
colonizers.
Yes.
My dad's heritage convicts, and mum's heritage is a mixture of Portuguese colonizers and black slaves.
Yes.
So that's, and that side of my family, so much pain, so much violence and addiction and abuse. And like growing up, I would blame my grandparents and my mother for being like this. But now that I'm older and wiser, and I have a look at how whitewashed the story within my family of Portuguese master and black slave procreating, they want to say that it's a romantic relationship. I'm like, use your head. That's not a romantic relationship. That's like, that's pain that's created generationally in us that we've tried to pretend. Like, they anglicized, my mum's name was anglicized, and in order to get into Australia during the White Australia policy, they had to say that they were European and didn't want to say exactly where they came from. It had like been migrating just to get over here. I can imagine how much pain then you have to deny this part of yourself so you're safe.
Exactly.
And then I come out the only white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed child in the family. And so it makes me understand a lot of difficulty between my mother's relationship and myself, now that I understand that she saw me being very privileged because my appearance was very different from hers, and that in itself created pain. So we're all got generational stuff that we need to look at. We just need to stop taking things so personally and look at this as a system. We're part of a system. And if other people are in pain, then we're all in pain, and we need to help heal it by us opening up wounds and having these conversations, saying something offensive when we don't mean to, being schooled, being like, there's probably some flack coming for some of the things that we said on this conversation, and I'm open to receiving it because I don't want to hurt people, and I do want to be part of the solution. And I do want to use what privilege I have to be able to help in any way that I can.
And that's it. And I think that's the importance of us having these conversations and using our privilege so we can create this new structure, this new, whatever it looks like, this new playing field where it is inclusive and we don't squander our privilege, in that we use it to amplify, all voices. And that's when I started speaking to this a lot, probably last year. I had a friend, an old friend that, was giving me a bit of slack, and he was like, so what, you're an expert on this now? I'm like, how could I possibly be an expert? Like, I'm a white woman. Like, I think it was about, racism and anti-racism, things like that. I'm like, I couldn't, as long as I'm white, I don't think I could ever be.
We'll never be an expert. And anyone who's white that says they're an expert is just being an asshole. Because we're not. And it's not our voices that we should be amplifying. We should just be starting the conversation amongst ourselves.
Exactly.
And start telling other white women to shush your mush and listen to our Asian sisters, listen to our Black sisters, listen to our Muslim sisters, listen to other people. Just be quiet and listen, which I think people are probably like, well, why are they having this conversation? I thought you're just being quiet. But it's like, to tell you, we're not the experts. We're just telling you, listen. we can't keep going the way that we're going. We can't use our privilege to ignore what's going on, because I don't want my daughter growing up in where we're headed, because it's affecting us. Like, not just as a species, the planet.
Yeah.
This system that we're in, built by white men, is destroying the planet. You know, I don't want my daughter, I want her to be in a better world. So, you know, I want that for all kids. And I know that as mums, that's one thing that will connect us all together, is what kind of world do we want for our children. So if you can't connect with anyone based on anything because you feel so different for whatever your background is, if you're a mum, you can connect on that. If you're a parent, you can connect on that. You want the world to be a better place for your kid, and you're willing to do anything and put yourself out there to be part of the world improving. Just find some common ground just to get started, and to listen with your heart.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much, gorgeous, for this conversation.
Thank you.
Really,
I can feel the nerves. I'm like, what is going to happen?
And yeah, it is. And that's something that I was left with last week after our conversation on Clubhouse. It was thought provoking, and I was left going, okay, like, where am I at? Like, what is this? So the inspiration it gave me, and just, it was thought provoking, and I'm thinking, okay, what action can I take? Where is this going? What do I need to adjust and do to be able to make these decisions that serve everybody, not just the 1% of the population? So, it was such a beautiful conversation. So thank you for today,
Thank you.
for just opening up this conversation. And I'm kind of dancing with it. Feels funny to ask you because of the conversation that we've had, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because I don't think there's been one show that I haven't asked it in however many I've done. So what is turning you on right now?
Being more authentic. You know what's really turning me on? Walking into a psychiatric hospital amongst my colleagues and saying that I'm a psychic medium, and we all need to start just being honest that we're intuitive beings. We're meant to use our intuition. There's nothing wrong about it. It is not crazy. It's not psychotic. It's not bullshit. We're not charlatans if we use it. And having them respond to me with relief, because I have sat on it for such a long time and hidden it, and had this business now for 5 years as a psychic medium and still not talked about it at work. Felt shame every time someone at work would ask me, what's your business? I'd be like, oh, I just help people. Oh, I'm just coaching. Like, I would never come out and say I'm a psychic medium. And now I've reached this point, like, I'm going to say it. And it's opening up conversations in that field. I would never in a million years have expected to happen. I've been sitting down with psychiatric colleagues. We've been talking about neuropsychiatry and intuition, and where it's activated, and how your nervous system's affected, and what parts of your brain light up, and how can we teach more on intuition in these spaces to make the spaces safer for our patients, and to not because so many patients that are having to be scheduled for risk to themselves or others are having spiritual awakenings and spiritual crises, and it's the privilege of the doctors that are talking to them that don't believe in this stuff that then determines whether or not they're forced to take medication and they're forced to stay there. I'm like, wow, this is broken, and this needs to shift, and this needs to change. So that's what's turning me on right now, is wanting to be part of that. I don't know if I can be part of many solutions, but I can definitely be using my voice and my privilege as having these two sides of myself coming together to start affecting change in those environments that aren't nice. That system is not nice, and it's definitely a reflection of the white patriarch, and I want to blow that up from within.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much, gorgeous. You do extraordinary work, and I'm really grateful that that you have the courage to have these conversations and to do this big work. And it is deep, juicy, huge work, and it's such an honor to just be able to witness you do it in your extraordinary way. So thank you so much for all that you do, my darling, and for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having this conversation with me.
I will put all your details in the show notes so everyone can follow you and and stalk you more and find out more about all that you do.
That's what I need, more stalkers.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.